What's up, everybody, and welcome to episode 2 of the Cooldown. Today, we realized we didn't really talk about who we were, so that's what we're going to do today. We're going to backtrack to what should have been episode, 0, and we're going to talk about ourselves a little bit, and we're just going to let you know who we are, why we got to this point, and let you on the team. So, Ryan, take it away.
Yeah, so I guess I'll go first. To start off, I'm a PhD student at the University of Buffalo. I'm studying aerospace engineering. My discipline is working with deep learning and AI, trying to push that research forward. Outside of that, I have a few other hobbies, like I coach a track team. I program an app that we're obviously funding here. And I do my pilot training. And I also, in my free time, do some scuba diving. So I've got a lot of stuff going on. It kind of keeps me busy. I try to balance it by, waking up at like 7, 8 o'clock, getting ready for my research requirements, getting that done. That takes me from 8 to 9 to 5, basically. Then from 5 to 6:30, I coach my track team, and then from 6:30 until approximately like midnight, I'll be working on my app. On the weekends is when I try to get my flight lessons done. I usually spend 2 hours each day on the weekend to try to tackle some of the lessons. And then whenever I have the free time, that's when I'll do my scuba diving requirements. But I try to keep myself pretty busy. I find that when I don't keep myself busy, that I end up feeling like that I'm doing nothing. So this is my way of spreading my life out and getting things that I want done. So that's basically who I am. Yeah. So
I have a question.
Yeah.
So I'm going to preface this with a tiny story where there was one day that I was texting Ryan and I said something to the effect of, you know what, guys, we should definitely get scuba diving certified. And within like 3 days, Ryan was like, oh, I got my certification. Wild.
Yeah.
This kid, as soon as you give him, like, put an idea in his brain, he's on it. Like all the way. So what do you have left to like complete your diving certification? Or are you like trying to go to a further point?
Right. So right now I actually have finished the basic requirements. So I already have the scuba diving certification, but there's advanced certifications. Like you can get a navigation certification. You can become like a scuba instructor and stuff like that. I think that realistically, I just want to be approved to dive deeper. So the philosophy is that the more certifications you have, the less no's you receive. So I want to try to receive as little no's as possible. And in order to do that, I have to acquire as many certifications as possible. But I'm starting off by just getting the certification and then trying to go on scuba trips or scuba adventures with some of the people that I did the class with. So we kind of like exchanged numbers and tried to set up certain things. We had a few things planned for the summer before, like I was going to go off to LA, but obviously that fell through because of the virus. But
so wait, are you still going to LA this summer?
Yeah, so that is kind of up in the air.
Explain.
Yeah.
Wait, guys, Ryan, just pull the mic a little bit from your face.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Is this better? Okay.
Yeah.
So this summer I was supposed to have an internship with the Navy. I was going to be continuing my research there for over the summer. So it was going to still be like deep learning and AI research, but just for the Navy. They have been in contact with me trying to tell us like what is the plan moving forward with everything going on with the world.
Yep.
And it's been really up in the air. So they said they'd get back to us this Wednesday, so tomorrow. Yeah, they're gonna get back to us. They said they have a start date for me, but I don't know if the start date means that I'm going to still have to go out there or everything's going to be online. So everything's still up in the air in that regards, but that's where I stand.
Wherever you end up this summer, I'm very down to go diving. I feel like now is probably a good time for me to do like the online part of the certification,
Yeah.
because what else am I going to do?
Yeah, well, I honestly just think that as soon as like you want to get that, you just go for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because like once you have it
The
done,
open water
like,
dive part right now would be a little bit difficult, but
yeah,
the
yeah,
part
yeah, that
before
might-
that can be
yeah.
done relatively easily. And
Mhm.
I've dove before. We used to my grandpa and my uncle were diving certified all when I was growing up, so we'd go diving in my cousin's pool and just like stay at the bottom of the pool for an hour.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And I was like maybe 10.
That's
Yeah,
like
it was.
as an adult, you're like, wow, why was
Probably
that
a terrible
entertaining?
idea, but
but
we
as a
just-
kid,
you know
you're
what-
like, this is sick.
Yeah,
Well,
you know,
there
like
was-
the pool torpedoes, we just sit at the
Yeah.
bottom and toss it back and forth.
That's funny.
When we had like holes in our pool like back in when we lived in like in Monroe.
Yep.
And one of the days there was a guy who like he was in the full scuba gear like underneath the water like fixing the pool.
Yep.
And we went upstairs. I was probably like 11, 12, but I went upstairs and we were watching him from above and just like the entire time, and he was there for like an hour. So
Yeah.
it was kind of funny.
He's just deep in your pool.
Yeah.
And you're like,
Yeah.
I could hold my breath that long too. And you're like, no, yeah, this guy's a
Yeah.
tank.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd be very down for that.
Yeah, no, I mean more people to go on scuba trips the better, because you need a partner. Like you're not allowed to go alone.
Yeah.
So it becomes a little bit limited if people are obviously like that you want to dive with that aren't close by. You kind of have to find people in the area, maybe join like a Facebook group or something like that. But it does become a little bit difficult in that regards. There are cool like scuba trips that people go on that like a whole squad of people go, and then you just kind of meet up and make
Yeah.
friends there.
It's like a regional based thing that people just collect
Yeah.
to.
The only thing is that sometimes it can get kind of pricey, so
Yeah.
that kind of
Yeah.
adds up.
I can see that happening, especially because people aren't maybe not always wanting to get the cheapest place, or you want to hit basic minimums, for like hotels.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I feel
yeah.
like diving is one thing that you can do pretty much anywhere, but to do it well and to like really enjoy yourself, I feel like sometimes it definitely gets pretty pricey.
Depends on where you are, I think.
You really
like
this
your
is
home
this is the
base.
meta. Let me tell you guys the meta here.
Yeah,
It's
The diving
it's-
meta. All right.
yeah, the diving meta is controlling your buoyancy. That's
Oh
it.
yeah.
Anything else is like you can learn it, like clearing your mask or learning like the different types of way of submerging and stuff like that. It's all easy.
Buoyancy.
Buoyancy is the meta. Once you have control over that, you've got it. Like that's all you need to do. And then it's just
Feeling-
swimming underwater.
Feeling that bag on your back inflate is the weirdest feeling ever.
I love it. I love that feeling.
It's so
I-
weird.
one time, okay, so this is kind of a funny story. I got yelled at mad hard for this, but there was a time where we were supposed to like go to the surface, right? And they tell you like specifically not to do this one thing, but I didn't think anyone was looking, and I wanted to see what it felt like. So if you fill up your buoyancy jacket, right? If you
Yep.
fill that up with air, when you're at the bottom, you're gonna fly up.
Mhm.
You're gonna fly up. However, as it's flying up, it could potentially explode, like due to the change in pressure.
Yeah.
Due to the change in pressure in the inside. So, I was just really curious. So we were at the bottom, and I like filled it up to the max, and I shot up like a rocket. The instructor came over to me, and he was like,
Let's see.
yeah. But the instructor came up to me, and he was like, okay, guys, this is a learning lesson right now. We don't do that. Whatever you do not fill up your buoyancy jacket while you're at the bottom of the like to reach the surface. I was like, sorry.
Because if it explodes, you sink.
Mm-hmm. And then
Yeah.
and
you
you're
sink to the
carrying
bottom.
Yeah,
And you're
and you have all
carrying
the
a
weight.
tank.
Yeah.
and you're
Yeah.
carrying a tank.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
That's not great.
Well, okay,
Yeah.
so is there ever a time like where that would be a good idea? Like dire situations? You know what I'm saying?
No, never. It's never a good idea. It's
So, like,
it's the
even if
same
you-
thing as you don't want to rise. Here's another thing that'll happen, right?
For your
Okay,
brain.
yes,
Yeah.
the buoyancy device or the jacket or whatever, that's full of air. But so are your lungs.
Yeah.
Okay? So your lungs would experience the exact same thing that bag would. So if you shoot up that fast, your lungs are also going to explode. And
Yeah.
you don't
Gotcha.
want that.
I was just
One
thinking
thing-
if like your leg was stuck or like it obviously that wouldn't not maybe that situation because then that wouldn't be powerful enough. But let's
Yeah.
say like you were low on oxygen in your tank. I like some crazy like survival
Yeah.
thing that you would see.
Well, so that's why you always go with a partner, because if you're low on
Yeah,
oxygen,
you take that
what you
risk.
do is there's actually an extra
Mouthpiece.
mouthpiece that you give to your partner,
Okay.
and then they'll breathe some of your air with you, and immediately after that you guys have to just slowly rise to the surface.
Yeah.
But you want to avoid any extreme situations at all costs.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
I mean,
that makes. I just didn't know like
Another
Having
thing.
the type of thing where you have to keep like a very level head.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because you're underwater. If you panic,
Yeah, you're done.
breathing
You're
more
done.
air, you're done.
On top of that, when I was doing my scuba diving lessons to acquire the certification, I at the same time was doing my flight lessons. And one of the things that you don't want to do is you don't want to go flying like 24 hours after you've like gone scuba diving, because the type of air you're breathing in is not normal air. It's got a lot of extra nitrogen in it, and that extra nitrogen can enter your bloodstream. It can enter your brain. It can enter your heart. It can enter a lot of parts of your body that you don't want it to be in. And then you basically got these bubbles in that area that are separating, like the blood or your brain or things like that could cause other issues that you don't want. So one thing they tell you to avoid is they tell you to avoid flying 24 hours after being on scuba.
On the dive. Yep.
Yeah, so I had a flight scheduled, like a flight training lesson scheduled the day after, like one of the days that we were practicing like on the scuba, and I was like under this like whole conundrum. I was like, oh man, like they tell me that you're not supposed to cancel your flight too early, like beforehand, but then I was like, but if I miss this lesson, then I have to like retake the whole class.
Oh.
So I was like, all right, what do I do here? So
risking my
luckily-
health.
So I do not say no one do this, but I decided that I was going to go through with it, but I got lucky and then it rained the next day, so the flight got canceled.
That's clutch.
That is clutch.
So I didn't have to worry about the situation. I was going to YOLO it, but I do recommend no one else YOLO it, because it's not worth it.
Yeah, that's your health
I
and
would
agree with
safety,
that.
and it's also the instructor's safety
Someone
too.
else's safety.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Exactly.
and the whole
Well-
world's safety. If something like
Yeah. Well, we signed a thing at the beginning saying that like if we have any accidents, it's not their fault. Kind
no,
of.
it's safety,
yeah.
not insurance.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah, oh,
the
yeah,
physical
that's-
people's
that's-
lives.
Yeah.
The
true,
insurance
true.
money is whatever at that
Yeah.
point.
Yeah.
People's
I will say though, it doesn't happen immediately. It's more of like a
long term.
like in the next few days type thing. For reference for people if they're listening, it's called decompression sickness. So if you look into decompression sickness, that's kind of what I've been talking about. But the cool part is actually there's these things called compression chambers that if you pay for scuba diving insurance, that you get unlimited access to the compression chambers. So if you ever experience like decompression sickness, you just go to the compression chambers and then they'll fix the problem for you. So it's
That's
pretty cool. It's pretty cool. Yeah.
That is actually pretty
Did
sick.
not know that. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So
Yeah.
I guess we covered scuba diving. We covered a little bit about flying. What is your actual research about?
Yeah. So
if you can say.
So I can say, one thing that's pretty cool about research versus working for a government business is that you're not really binded to like an NDA or anything like that. Everything's pretty free.
Yep.
Everything's pretty
Yeah.
free form. So basically, I work with these neural networks that are called generative adversarial networks. The concept is you have two separate neural networks that are competing against one another. One network is trying to create fake samples. So think of like counterfeit money. It's trying to like make counterfeit money, right? And then the other network is trying to tell if you handed it counterfeit money or if you handed it real money. And you are handing it both real money and counterfeit money at different times. The idea is that they're both training simultaneously, and that as they're training, this one is becoming really good at telling the difference between counterfeit and real, and the other one is getting really good at producing like counterfeit money. And the use cases are beyond that. I mean, you want to use them for all types of classification problems or all types of like line of best fit problems that they're applicable in all of those sense. My particular research is trying to improve its ability to perform line of best fit, or in our jargon, it's regression. Improve its ability to perform regression because it actually has outperformed other networks in classification tasks. And that's really interesting. I mean, if it can outperform other networks at classification tasks, well, then maybe it'll be able to outperform the leading networks at regression tasks. And if we can find the line of best fit for any type of data, nonlinear, linear, anything, then we get a better understanding of physical models, and then we can use those physical models to make more complex systems, understand the universe as a whole, and kind of just push the scientific community forward. It's really cool. I have a strong passion for it. I think that it's this really open field that a lot of people are trying to chip away at, and it's a big problem. So no one really has a good solution.
Yeah.
So it makes me feel engaged. It makes me feel like that I am actually contributing to the research community.
Is there a specific project that you're applying that to?
Yeah, so currently I'm actually applying it to a project for the Navy. This is actually how I got the Navy internship. But the project for the Navy is trying to do some reconfigurability of like maintenance procedures. I know that's a lot of like big words right there, but think of just like taking apart a computer and putting it back together. I mean, that's like the same thing, but on more like on systems that are on a naval ship or like a submarine or something like that. My specific component to this in this project is performing object detection and object tracking. So we want to do an overlay, like an augmented reality overlay, to show the person like how to take apart the object, how to put it back together. So we want to have like an overlay that'll show like, oh, this is how you do it. This is how you do this step. This is how you do this step.
So you have to be able to detect the object at different states throughout the
Exactly.
process.
So that is what we want to do. We want to be able to detect it at different points. Now, an obvious question here, right, is that, well, that's not regression. Like that seems like that's like you're trying to do like some object detection, which is more of a classification case, which is saying like, oh, that's an apple, that's a cup, that's a classification case. So that's what this feels like, right? So yes, that part is, but my contribution to the field in that task is combining the object detection through classification and the object detection through regression, and merging the two to try to create a better object detection system. The way that it would merge is, let's say, using position, velocity, acceleration of the movement of the camera, and then trying to predict the next position, the next velocity, the next acceleration based on the position, velocity, acceleration that was fed in. So that's creating a model of the movement of the camera, so that when you have fast motions moving around, it is still able to maintain the detection and not able and improve upon the ability to detect that object just by performing classification detection.
Gotcha.
So that's, I know that's a lot, but that is exactly what I am doing for my research.
Yeah, that sounds dope.
Yeah. So
the one thing I gotta say is you do very good examples to make it way simpler. Because like I've done one science class since high school. Like science has not been a part of my life. So like for you, like the way it does definitely help it. Because
Yeah.
I
And
did.
even like, so even I understand some of what Ryan's talking about. I've like read some research involved in that area, but like specifically what Ryan's talking about is still outside of
Your
what
realm.
I'm
Yeah.
involved in. Yeah. So like,
Yeah.
I agree. Ryan's like bringing it down a
Yeah,
notch.
which
Where
I appreciate a lot.
Yeah.
good to
I
understand.
think that if you really know something, then you can do that because I actually
Oh,
have
that's
the
fair. Yeah.
biggest pet peeve with people who go out there and then they try to explain something to somebody and they use all the jargon. They say like all these like complex topics and throw them at them as if they're normal. And I know that they're not incredibly difficult to understand if you put the time into it,
Yes.
but you have to understand your audience. You have to understand that Jeremy, for
Yeah.
example, hasn't read like a scientific paper. I can't go and say, all of that terminology and all of that jargon and just say, yeah, that's what it
Yeah,
is,
like
you know?
when you
Yeah.
talked about how it was a counterfeit thing, I was like, oh, that makes total. But the thing, and that's not a complicated concept.
Exactly.
But once you said it, I was
Exactly.
like, oh, this makes perfect sense. Like I
Hmm.
understand what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the other part I
Yeah.
had to do with math, and I was like, I got that. That's easy. I teach that.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, and I am in no way like a genius at all or anything like that. But I will say that you can really point out people who are smart versus they're not smart, depending on the way that they teach someone who is not as smart as them or doesn't know as much as them. That is something that I can tell. Or even if not as smart, you could definitely tell someone's emotional intelligence from that. And I think
Yeah.
that's important.
So so now I think I'm gonna take it over, and that's the one thing I will slightly disagree with you on, and only because of what I do. So I'm a high school special ed teacher, and I focus on math.
Yep.
And the one thing is, I have students who are very high capable, but would not be able to explain it because of their disabilities if they're high functioning autism. So there is something the inverse of what you just said. But again, that's
Yeah.
that's a different population. You know.
Yeah, I'll let you continue too. I just wanna I wanna say that's really good because you definitely showed me like a new way to look at it. You kind of tilted my camera a bit. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
I
Yeah, which I
100%
like.
agree
Yeah.
with you. I do think people who do not have some sort of intellectual disability, typically you either repeat the jargon or you can actually break something down. So I do agree with you there. But that was just one
if
point.
you
I was
know
like,
something well, then you
Yeah.
can teach it well.
yes.
Yeah.
But that's
No,
why.
but you make a good argument. You make a good
Yeah.
argument. Yeah.
So again, I'm a high school math teacher, special ed math teacher. I also coach cross country, indoor and outdoor track at the school, so I'm the head coach for that as well. Over the past 3 years, I've taught every math subject: so algebra 1, geometry, algebra 2. I've taught sets and functions, which is the highest class that a special ed student would take. So I've taught all the ranges of all those classes. So that's been a lot of fun and a huge blessing because I graduated with a criminal justice degree. I didn't graduate with a teaching degree, so I'm currently in school getting my master's. So I'm 3 years into that program for special ed as well.
How many more years do you have for that?
It all depends. So like
2, maybe 2 or 3.
it 2 to 3, but like the virus is obviously throwing everything in the whack around the world, and this is like a minor problem compared to everything else. But over the summer, like, I'm gonna get married over the summer, in June. So I don't know if that's gonna happen, and then I don't know if I want to take a class during that time. Like, there's just so many extra things that are weighing on me that I don't know if like taking a class is gonna be worth it. So I might just hold off another semester.
Right.
But that's a different beast. On the so that's the education side. Coaching wise, yeah, it's a freaking blast. Because I work with kids again with disabilities during the school day, so a lot of the other 1,000 kids in the building didn't always necessarily know who I was. And then when I took over the team, kids really started to know who I was. I could walk down the hallway and people would know who I was. They just call me Coach White, and I'm like, I've literally never seen you in my life before. But like kids just talk to each other. Also, I teach inside the Beltway of Baltimore, and again, I'm not from Maryland, but if you're considered inside the Beltway, you're considered in the city. So I'm a inner city school. We have our ups and downs like everywhere else. So there's a bunch of things I like about the school, you know, in the school district, and there's things I don't like, but that's just comes with everything. So it's definitely interesting. So one thing about how our school works is it's a magnet school, and this is one of the things that I don't really like, and not about our school, but every school in the area is a magnet school. So what that means is kids can apply to go to those schools. So I view it as, yes, it is cool for some kids to go and experience an art school or a school that's for agriculture, or our school is the health magnet school. But at the same time, what you're also doing is a lot of kids are leaving their zone school because they don't like the population there. So it's a weird line of, because most of the education you're getting, unless you're going to the auto tech school, the cosmetology school, or the art school, they're really all the same. Like the health magnet, they're not taking anything super crazy. Agriculture is a little different, but that school's also like an hour away from everywhere else, and it's actually in farmland. But there's a bunch of different ones that it's like a weird line that I think I lean more towards I don't like it. And that's probably my biggest knock on the school. It's definitely that's the one thing I'm like about.
I have a few questions actually. So one thing, do you see yourself like staying in this school district for a while? I mean, it doesn't seem like that you kind of want to be there for much longer.
No. So what my thought has been, not always been, but it's been, if I'm in Maryland, I'm at this school. I love the kids to death. I'm not leaving this school. When I'm working with these kids, I can work with them in a way that I can help them academically, but also as human beings. And that's, I think the most important thing of a school is to create community members. Some schools role in their job is to push kids on to college. Some of them are to get them to certain spots or get certain SAT scores. While I think that's important even for the school I work at, I think it's about getting kids to be good citizens and getting them to aspire to say, you know what, I'm going to go get a trade. I'm not just going to do I'm going to go, the local community college, if you have a 2.5 or higher, you get free tuition. A 2.5 doesn't seem like a lot, but last year, about halfway through the class, let's say the graduating class, I think it was like 200, 300, something like that. The midway point was a 2.2. Like that was half. So like half the kids couldn't even a 2.2 out of 4 GPA. So like, I don't know. I feel like there's so much extra push that I can do at this school compared to any other school that I couldn't leave this. That's just, if I'm in Maryland, I'm at that school.
Making an impact is super big. And actually, the second thing is less of a question, but I guess it can kind of be one. It's more of a comment. But I think that role is like perfect for you, because I think that you take very unique solutions to all problems that are presented to you. And I think this is one of those areas that a textbook can't tell you how to handle that situation. So you need to be creative. You need to be unique. And I think that really helps you in this particular discipline,
Yeah. I agree with that. The textbook does not.
Yeah, but I guess the question part of this is like, what kind of got you to realize that this is your passion? Like this is what you wanted to do?
Yeah. So my entire family is in education except for my younger sister. So that's my dad and my 3 older siblings. We're all in education. I went to college education. Didn't realize there's a GPA requirement. And I'm to be honest. So didn't know there was one. And I just, I was just enjoying myself. So then graduated with criminal justice by the help of my parents for sticking with me. Honestly, like they stuck with me, and I kind of admitted that like I probably shouldn't go back, but especially my mom, she really pushed for education. So I owe a lot to her, and my dad and my older brother who are helping me. He was like, you can still graduate on time if you graduate with criminal justice. He went through all the stuff for me, so like I owe them a lot. And when this is actually a crazy story. So it was senior year. It was it was either right before Christmas break or no, it was right after Christmas break, and it was like awkwardly nice outside. And I had a teacher, that Miss Buckley. She was the math education teacher, and I was walking, and she was like, "Oh, hey, Jeremy, like I haven't seen you in class." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm no longer like in education anymore. Like I'm criminal justice." She was like, "Is that what you want to do?" And I was like, "Well, yeah, it's what I'm gonna do." And she's like, what do you know? It's like, I'm just going to become like a cop or something. And not knocking cops. That's not what I'm doing. But like for me, it was just like.
I do remember you talking about
yeah,
that though.
And like I didn't know what to do. Like I felt like I didn't have a path. And she was like, do what you want to do. She's like, you have time. Like, and she was just like, find a way. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to do it. So then I went online. I looked at all these tests I could take. So I took, I'm conditionally certified. So I passed all my teaching exams. And so the state of Maryland said, boom, you're good. So now I just have to get my master's. But it was literally that moment when I was like, why am I wasting my own thoughts on something I'm not sold on doing? Like my roommate, before he moved out, he's a cop. And so he moved out a few months ago, and he worked at one of the local precincts. And he always wanted to be a cop. Like we were criminal justice together, but he was there as a freshman. I joined in as a junior, and he was like, "This is what I want to do," and I was like, "This is what I'm gonna do." That I think that wanting to do it and gonna do it are very different, and I think that's where that level was. And, she was. I was like, why am I wasting my time? And then I went and saw her last year. Actually, I went to her office hours. I literally drove an hour and a half to go talk to her, and I told her and. I've been in contact with her ever since, just like nice emails every once in a while.
Just like, there you go, Jeremy.
Yeah.
I also think that quote right there is like fantastic. That you always like will have enough time, like you're young and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because I mean, even up till like I'd say maybe last year, I always had this like overwhelming pressure that I was running out of time.
Yeah.
You know that there was that I was never going to be able to get everything that I wanted to done, but now I kind of see it as I'm only 24 years old.
Yeah.
I have so much years left of my life. All of these dreams, all of these passions that we have, I mean, they're not out of reach and they're not impossible. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the one thing, like, and honestly, I'm just blessed that I got the school I got. I couldn't I really couldn't have had a better school. You know, like the kids, the teachers, the people I work with, like that is. I couldn't have asked for a better school for me. You know, because when I did criminal justice, I focused on juvenile justice. So I always wanted to work, no matter what I was going to do, I wanted to work with youth. Like that's always been a passion of mine, just to be able to work with, you know, kids in a different way. Kids who need something. Doesn't matter what it is. It could be help with math problem. It could be help with, you know, getting a parole officer and getting in line. Like those, I just always loved being someone who can work with kids. I volunteered throughout college at these like after school programs, just because I feel like that's where I found the best me and I could impact the most and really impact myself, which is like a weird, not selfish way, but selfish way. Like I felt like I was growing the most by helping others.
Yeah.
It's interesting to see how like the values that you hold with regards to that are related to what we've seen, because like Ryan and I both went through all of high school. We knew your family really well. Like Jeremy's dad was our coach.
Yeah.
Throughout all of high school, he was Coach White.
Yeah.
And yeah,
he was our
Coach
now
I'm
White.
Coach White.
Now Jeremy's Coach White.
Thinking of you as Coach White, because that was always him. But you can see so much of that in you, where like your dad really cares about his athletes.
Yeah.
He's like really looking for how to bring the best out of them. And like every time we talk to you about it, you're like describing all of these actions that you're taking to like, maybe your athletes aren't the best, but like you're really pushing them to like get better, which is awesome.
Yeah, and I want to bounce off that too, because you know, Jeremy is coaching a team and I like coach like kind of like a clubbish team, but everything that I do is like I think dwarfed by everything that he can do. I mean, I know my potential and I know what I can do and I know that I bring something good to the table, but I always look up to Jeremy and his dad as like coach figures, because they kind of showed me what it was like to be a coach. So really I'm just modeling everything I do after what they do. So
yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, like just accolades of the kids last year. Last year was my second year as a coach and we got 7th at the state meet. That hadn't happened in school. Like that was the best finish in school history. There was a state champ, you know, state champ in the discus. He got 3rd in shot. Sprinters I coached got between second and fourth. Everyone who went to the state meet scored.
Yep.
We had 14
Dang.
14 individuals go to the state meet. Every of them scored. Like, it was unbelievable. And that's all for the kids. Like, the kids, they stepped up. They realized that, they can do something great, and they stepped up and did that. And that's another thing I'm upset that the virus is taking. It's taking time from the kid. Yeah, and I know there's a lot of kids, especially the seniors, who want that one extra shot to compete, that extra shot to create memories. Because like, we are great friends because we were able to create memories together. Like running, that's why we are great friends, because we spent every day together, Monday through Saturday, essentially for 4 years.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then when we weren't running on Sunday, we'd probably hang out.
Yeah, like it was. It's actually
be at one of our houses just hanging out. Yeah.
It was actually absurd, but like that's with these kids, and I feel for these kids all across the country, across the world, that they're missing out on these opportunities to create memories.
Also, on top of that, if you think about like when we peaked, I mean, Jeremy was pretty much standard the whole way. I mean, his senior year was pretty great, but Connor, you and I, our peak was our senior year. Like for not like in all of running, but like for high school running.
Yeah.
For high school running, that was our peak. And if we didn't get to have that, I mean, who would have? Maybe we wouldn't even be in the situations we're in now.
Yeah. So I was injured at the end of cross country my senior year, and it was terrible, honestly. I walked over to the line at the section meet with everyone, knowing that I wasn't gonna run, and just watching everyone, like, the gun goes off, everyone runs away. It's not a great feeling. So,
and
like,
so like, and just like, he
guys.
wasn't just competing at the section. Like, me and him were locks to go to the state meet. Like and like where we ran in Section 9 in New York is like a very good section for cross country run. Like, we were both locks to go, and like that, it was hard for me too. And I'm not not nearly as hard as you. I'm not trying to take that, but like,
it's all good.
That year they were 1 and 2, so
yeah. I still went to the state meet just in a boot to watch Jeremy.
It was rough. That was rough, like, going, and I knew you weren't, and I was like, nah, he's gonna do it.
I got to watch the course with Michael.
Yeah. But yeah, that was a thing. And then just lastly, what I do on the side for fun is I stream on Twitch, and I'm trying to make more YouTube content. So I do that
Here we are.
Yeah, so now we're here. And now podcasting as well. Just trying to keep, expanding my portfolio.
Keep the content flowing.
Yeah, gotta keep it coming.
But I also really like what you were saying about like doing something that you would enjoy, because if you're gonna be miserable, like, honestly, what's the point?
Yeah.
Like when I graduated college in 2018, I probably applied for 100 jobs. 90% of those jobs I'd be so absolutely miserable at. And like, I love what I do now. Like, I'm very busy and sometimes even a little stressed, but I really like what I do now. So like,
explain what you do.
Okay, so I work. All right, so I'll start with what I was hired as. I was hired as a mechanical.
Let's go by the paperwork first.
So I graduated from college with a degree in mechanical engineering. I had done a couple co-ops, initially in medical devices, because I thought that's what I wanted to do. Maybe I'll work with prosthetics or something. But then as I did my first 2 co-ops in medical devices, I kind of found out that it's a really slow process, and working with the FDA, everything needs to go through like 10 levels of approval. It's just not really that fun. So my last co-op, I worked at a company called Draper, which is a big military contractor in Cambridge, Massachusetts, where I was working more in a research and development type field. So I'm sure Ryan can a little bit relate to this, where the projects were very fast moving, and I got to work on a bunch of different things that I had never really interacted with before. So that kind of got me pushed a little bit in the direction that I was going. And then my senior year capstone, we worked with the NASA Jet Propulsion Lab on CubeSats, which are just very small satellites. And then that pushed me even more in this direction. So now after college, I was hired as a mechanical engineer at a company called WaveSense, where we develop a very specific type of sensor for self-driving cars. And
Vroom,
so, yeah.
vroom.
So what this sensor does is we're using a ground penetrating radar technology that was developed at MIT, where we're strapping a radar to the bottom of the vehicle. And with that, we're sending radar waves down into the ground. You'll get reflections back to the vehicle off of anything from roots, rocks, changes in soil density or soil type. If there's any rebar, pipe, any sort of infrastructure in the road, all of that comes back to the vehicle, um, so that each point along the road has a very unique radar signature. So as you move along the road, you can create a 3D map of what under the ground looks like.
Mm-hmm.
And so with that map, the next time you go over that path, you can compare what your radar sees in real time to the map to tell you exactly where on the road you are. And so that solves a big localization problem that a lot of self-driving cars are having right now, where there's a reason that everyone's kind of Google and places like Aptiv and a bunch of different self-driving car companies are all doing their testing in either California or Arizona, because it never snows, it never rains. It's always generally pretty nice outside.
Mm-hmm.
So typically for localization, a self-driving car would use something like a camera or radar or lidar, which is just shooting lasers at things and getting the reflections back.
Would the lidar be on the visible plane, or would it go down to the earth?
Nope. So lidar is light isn't
It's
very
like a
good at
camera.
penetrate. Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah,
so it's on the visible plane for.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, so you're essentially shooting a laser at a surface and it'll reflect back so
Gotcha.
that you can
Mhm.
see, and based on how long that light is traveling,
Creates an
you,
image.
you
Yep.
can tell how far away it is and you can create an image out of
I gotcha.
it. And then you run into something like Ryan is doing, where you're classifying all those objects and using that to feed into your other algorithms to
Mhm.
steer the vehicle and avoid objects and things like that. But so one of the main issues that all of these vision sensors have is any sort of obstruction or noise in the environment. If you can't see what you're trying to measure yourself off of, then your sensors just won't work.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of looking out at the world around us, which is very noisy and can change frequently, say they cut down a tree or move a building or something.
Construction, yeah.
Yeah, if there's construction, that changes what the outside world looks like. So instead of looking out, we're looking down.
Yeah.
Because under the ground doesn't really change that much. It's a very stable data set that you always have access to if you're driving. And
Wow.
also we're not heavily affected by poor weather, which snow, rain, fog, all that type of stuff really causes a problem for vision sensors.
Yeah. So I actually have a question.
Yep.
I have a statement first, because the thing is, what's really interesting is that his company is taking such a unique approach to this as well. Because if you go into the research, a lot of it is doing this thing called domain randomization, which is they're taking the environment and simulating, like, let's say, more cars in the environment, or they're simulating a winter condition, or they're simulating a rainy condition,
Fuzzing
which
the data.
yeah, they're fuzzing the data in a simulated environment. So think of it like in a video game. Like they'll
Yeah.
change the conditions of the video game and then run the thing on that. But like that is an incredible amount of work, where they're kind of going like a totally separate route, where they're just using different type of data to train this
Yep.
for the localization problem, which I think is super interesting.
Yep. So it's
Now-
a completely orthogonal data set that's unaffected by anything else that's in the environment.
Yeah. The question though is, are you part of like the research team at this company? Is that like your position?
So really our entire team is research, I guess. Yeah, I would consider myself to be more on the research and development side.
Mhm.
We've recently hired some people that are more product oriented, where we're going to take this sensor that we've developed and make it more manufacturable, put it in the right form factor where we can mount this to a car in a more commercial sense. But I'm very much on the side of we're altering the radar signals, seeing how it performs in different weather conditions, kind of seeing how these small changes alter what our data looks like. So based on the wavelength and the waveform and all the different windowing schemes and depth that you can apply to it, the actual data set that you're making your match off of looks different. So my main job right now is to essentially take all of the data that we collect and run it through simulations with different system parameters to, one, see which set of system parameters works the best, so kind of an optimization type thing, and then two, calculate the system accuracy, see what works the best, and then if things aren't working, kind of use my understanding of all of our algorithms and our data set to inform everyone else in our company,
Right.
hey, this doesn't work, this is what we can do to improve it.
Right.
Because so we have very specialized people where we have someone that works on radar, we have someone that works on software, but I'm kind of in the middle of all of those things. I do the testing, I do the analysis, I do the simulations.
Right.
So I need to have kind of a more complete vision of our system and a more complete understanding of all of the parts and how they interact, so that I can kind of be the go-between and inform everyone of how things should work.
Yeah. So the final thing I have actually is like, you said that, you've been on this journey trying to find something. Do you love what you do, or do you think you're still on the hunt?
True.
No, so any other job that I applied for, I don't even remember applying for this job, but this is far and away the most fun that I would have of any of the jobs that I applied for. Like, I was hired as the first employee of a startup. After our CEO and CTO, I was the first employee after that.
I remember you told that, and I was like, it's kind of weird.
Yeah, you're like, that's interesting. That doesn't sound like a great idea. I was like, hey, I need a job.
Yeah.
And honestly, in a couple ways, I do count myself as kind of lucky that I ended up in a position like this, because they hired one other person at the same time as me, also a mechanical engineer, where because there were two mechanical engineers, I kind of got to take my pick at what I wanted to do. So as soon as something more software oriented was offered up, when my boss said, hey, we have this analysis that we need to run on this data, can you do that? I kind of got to move more towards that end, where our other mechanical engineer is designing the sensor, like the sensor enclosure, rather getting it manufactured, kind of working on different cabling and things like that, which is not necessarily what I wanted to do. It's kind of what I went to school for, but I'm more and more realizing that I'm kind of more software oriented in my brain, and that's what I enjoy doing more. So really, I got to steer myself in the direction that I wanted, and then as I started like gaining all of this knowledge of separate parts of the system, I kind of feel like I just became the go-to guy, where if people have questions about how things work or how we want them to work and what we can do to get there, I have people asking me questions 23 hours a day at least.
Yeah.
And honestly, like, I wouldn't have it any other way. It's definitely stressful sometimes, where I have a ton on my plate. People are asking me to do 4 or 5 different tests every day, when each one of them takes like a week. So it's a lot, but I really do like it.
That's good. No, that's really good.
Yeah.
Glad to find something that you love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just remember when you said that you were the first employee, I was like, I don't know startups because like obviously I work
Yeah.
for like the government.
It's
I'm a
weird,
state employee,
honestly.
but like I was
Yeah.
like I understand what startup, but like I don't get like how they're like, haha, you are the first person we want to give money to, and you're like, wait, how do they have the money? It's just like a weird.
That
So they
that is
got
one that I don't understand
They had a
either.
grant, right?
Yeah.
so I'll give a little bit more backstory on it. The technology that our company is based off of was developed at MIT Lincoln Lab, which is a big
best school
military
in
contractor
Boston.
associated with MIT. MIT's in Cambridge, first of all.
Whatever.
It's not in
Whatever.
Boston.
It's the same thing. Wicked
Either way.
smart.
Wicked smart. So it's just a big military contractor associated with MIT, where our CTO led this group for about 10 years that was developing this technology. So there's millions and millions of military dollars that went into developing it for 10 years. And then once it was kind of a matured technology, our CEO and CTO kind of got together and said, hey, we can apply this to a commercial space, because before it was mounted on 9-ton military vehicles and it was being tested in Afghanistan.
Yeah,
So
that's
they figured,
so
hey, we can put this on a normal car and it'll probably do the same thing.
that's so true though, because in research, that's like so common for people to take their research out of the university and make a company out of it. I mean, they kind of use it as like a home base type thing. They go into the university, get the university funding, leave, make a company. If it fails, they just go back to the
It's
university.
like it's also like a safety net.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And if you have tenure, like you're solid. Yeah.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting if we develop out this technology even further and then end up at some point selling it back to like more military people,
Yeah.
because that's
true.
where it came from in the
Yeah.
first place. But yeah, so right before I was hired, they did a $3 million funding round, just our CEO and CTO together. So that's been our runway, and I think we're doing another funding round relatively soon.
All right.
Awesome. Yeah.
Maybe the Cooldown will sponsor it.
Yeah, maybe.
Dude, we're gonna need a few more college versus sponsors before that.
Yeah. Yeah, I got to pour in some more money.
Yeah. But yeah, that's what I do.
All right, so I got a question.
Yes.
And I don't want a specific. All right, I just want
Deal.
of the things that you two talked about. Are you currently doing something? This is just yes or no. Are you currently doing something that you could do that you would want to do for the next 20 years of your life? Ryan, yes or no?
So
Just yes. No, I don't want you to explain what it is.
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Connor?
I agree. Also, yes.
Okay. And I'm a yes. I'm doing something. Yes. That.
Yeah.
I wanted the bare bones,
Yeah.
raw answer.
I will say though, it is kind of interesting to see the different trajectories that we all kind of took, you know, because I think that like since I was a child, I've wanted to pursue the dream that I'm pursuing, which is, I should have probably said this earlier, but becoming an astronaut.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
But yeah, but I've always been pursuing that dream since day one. So everything that I'm doing, of course I have to say yes to, you know, obviously I wouldn't be down this path, but like with you guys, I feel like it's like Jeremy knew what he wanted to do, but then got derailed and eventually found his way back.
Yeah.
And then Connor had no idea what he wanted
I
to
just
do,
ended up
and
here,
then stumbled up in his way. So it's
Yeah.
really interesting when you look at those three trajectories because they're so vastly different.
Yeah, and like my trajectory got impacted by you guys, mostly from
Yeah.
Connor, from introducing the Smash Doc, which is Super Smash
Yeah.
Bros. Documentary, which
True.
got me into.
Forgot about that.
I had never played video games. So the Wii was my first system. Like I never
Yeah.
played video games growing up, and until I was
That
in
was
college,
the weirdest thing.
yeah, and then that
Yeah.
got me into video games,
really
which is
big.
why I like I stream 4 days a week,
Yeah.
and that like added a whole different area of my life that
Mhm.
I honestly would be way different if I
Yeah.
wasn't creating content for 2+ years and just like
Who would Jeremy be right now?
yeah, like it actually is a
I have no
huge
idea.
difference. It's developed me so much, which is a weird thing that many people might not understand, but like
Yeah.
it's true.
Yeah.
Any hobby can develop somebody in a good or bad way. It just depends on
Yeah.
how the person.
I
uses it.
also hobbies should in some way become something that can pull you in money because that's something that you love to do. You know, that's my philosophy. If you love it if it's a hobby, something that you do every day, you should try to find a way to make something out of that. That's at least my philosophy.
Agreed. I agree that it would be nice, but at the same
Mm-hmm.
time, some things you want to keep as like a
Like running.
like a leisure thing, or like
True.
some people knit, some people do things like they want that to be a relaxation rather than I have to do this to make it end meet or something. So I think, I think that's interpersonal. Like,
Yeah, you're right. That's probably interpersonal. Yeah. Because I would say, like, my view is that if I could make money off of everything that I am doing, then I would.
Yeah.
But I think that might not hold for everybody, you know?
Yeah. And sometimes you want your thing to just be your thing. You just want that to be your unwind hobby or activity. Everything has value. Value doesn't have to be monetary. I think like that's
True.
I think that's kind of what we all agree on.
Mhm.
Monetary value is not the end of the world.
Well, yeah. That's a pretty good overview of who we are.
Yeah, I think that kind of wraps us up pretty well. But yeah, we've known each other for a decade. And
3 best friends
Look at us.
in it for the long run.
yeah.
Yeah.
Again, this video was also sponsored by College Versus, so shout out to them.
Yeah. Please take a look.
Yeah, it's linked down in the description below. We are all on College Versus, so you can go and connect with us on there as well as on YouTube and in the comments down below. If you guys have topics you want to discuss, if you want us to do a video on dares of College Versus, we will do a whole podcast on the dares of College Versus.
That would be wild.
But we need at least 5 people to get College Versus, and in the dare, there's a whole section about how to do dares, all right? In the dare, make it known that you're from the YouTube, all right? You're from the Cooldown, and we will do it. If we get 5 people to do that, we will do an episode on different types of dares that we're going to perform. Obviously,
And you could dare any 3 of us. Any 3 of us.
Yeah. Obviously, make sure they're accessible for us to have a camera, because it might be a little difficult if you ask us to do things that are too crazy, because we also are a podcast. So try to find a happy medium there. You guys got anything else to say?
No, I think that's good.
That's it.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Enjoy yourselves. Call your
Thanks
mom.
for watching.
Tell you love her.
See you
She
guys.
deserves to know. But your boys are done.